Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, and with me is my good friend, John Bristowe. How are you doing, John?
I'm well. I hope you're well as well, and well as well, I guess. I don't know what I'm
Well
talking
then. This is our usual weekly news show. So we've got all of the tantalizing news bits from the tech and software development news cycle to give our very astute opinions of whatever the
Yes,
tech may be.
right.
So it's nice to be back in the office. I was out a week or two ago doing some in-person travel, conferencey stuff. It's good to be home.
Yep.
Good to see you all again. So let me share. Looks like my only option here. I got to get back. I chose Firefox because it was running StreamYard better, but for some reason the
Okay.
screen sharing options are more limited. It's more
Okay.
sandboxed. I don't know why that is. So I can't get off this hollow mirrors effect, but
Whee!
it is what it is.
Yep.
Me being a software developer, I can't figure out how a browser works. That's all good. So first things up, John, we've got the 2022 developer survey from Stack Overflow,
Yep.
which comes with a handy dark and light mode. I love that. I mean, you got to have the dark light mode on a survey.
Yes. Yes. So the developer survey has been going on for a number of years now. Stack Overflow reaches out to its community and asks a series of questions. And so this is a really like a treasure trove or a gold mine of information for folks like myself who are engineering products for developers. So if you're at all interested in the developer audience, this is one of the go-to surveys to look at. In the latest survey results, they surveyed over 70,000 developers or so, I think 73,000 developers representing 180 countries. And basically, they asked them a series of questions, and those questions ranged from, what is your role, what are some of the aspects of what you do, where do you live, etc. But then, more interestingly, is like what technologies do you use, what technologies do you want to use, what technologies do you hate to use, what technologies would you like to use, things like that. And technologies can cover like systems, programming languages, IDEs, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of really good information in this survey. And interestingly enough, there was some really interesting observations in the latest round of the survey. So the survey obviously does a lot of great. It can be distilled down into like what trends are happening in the industry. So at the moment, one of the big sort of line items around this survey results is the rise of Docker. So Docker has been around for a long time. It's a technology that allows you to basically create, containers that run, basically platforms within this sort of isolated environment. And they are a really good way of standing up infrastructure that you can run inside a test, for example, and spend and have confidence that those environments will work well. So the Docker is seen to be as one of the big winners in this survey results. So if you're not using Docker, maybe you should consider using it based on the current trends that are being espoused by this survey. Another big winner is Rust. So Rust is a programming language that is used. It's highly secure. It's used heavily by companies like 1Password, etc. And they talk a little bit about how it's being utilized. Anyways, there's lots of observations to make in this survey, and so I thought I would just highlight this there. You can go ahead and take a look at them, if the results, if you want. But again, some of the answers may interest you. I don't know, but it is just an interesting sort of affirmation of where you are as an individual developer. It's nice to know that you're not alone when it comes to your love or hate for certain things, the places you go for information, like for example, learning platforms like you're highlighting here. So there's
It's like
lots and lots of really interesting information.
Udemy's way more popular than I thought. I've never
Right.
actually used it myself. I don't have anything for or against it. I just didn't realize it was up that high in usage. So
Right.
66.5%. With things I'm familiar with, like Pluralsight being down here at 22%. That's kind of
Yes.
surprising to me.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. Years coding, about 5 to 9 years is average for the survey. Coding professionally is about the same.
Mm.
They break this down nicely, by the way.
Yes,
There
they
are
do.
lots of different categories in here. So we can go by
Yes.
technology, most popular
This is my
tech,
favorite section. Yeah.
JavaScript, HTML, CSS. A lot of web developers are using
Yes.
Stack Overflow. I think is
Oh,
part of the reason that
yeah. It's always
answer
going
is
to win
so
the
high.
lion's share of
Mhm.
technology. It's the one that most people are continue to build. So makes sense.
Absolutely. Good old C Sharp's up there in the top.
Shout out to Math Lab.
Oh yeah, where did that one fall? Where did you see that?
Math Lab. It's right in the middle. Shout out to the
I don't know.
scientists and other
Yeah,
researchers out there. Objective C still hanging around. That's interesting.
yeah, we
Especially in
got
the line. Yeah, COBOL. I know.
the
Got a
one
lot of
COBOL
got a lot of old
developer in
banks
there.
that are still running hard. There you go. MySQL dominant database of choice.
Mhm.
No surprises there. Postgres, SQLite, MongoDB. No surprises.
Yeah,
So
cheers to my friends at Redis there.
Redis.
They've
Yep.
got a good share at the
Firebase, actually, that's
share
interesting.
there.
Firebase is one that I've kept an eye on. I've actually toyed with. I like Firebase a lot. So I wish they would just call it Firebase, but Firebase real time database. That's I think been acquired by Google. So cloud platforms, AWS, Lambda probably leading the charge there, but AWS is eating the lunch of the cloud world alongside Azure and Google Cloud. Obviously, I'm surprised they include Firebase, but I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, Firebase does have
Mhm.
sort of that aspect. I would lump them together with Google Cloud if I was, being kind of a stickler here. DigitalOcean always, up there with resources. They've got probably some of the smartest folks working for them on the cloud side, meaning in terms of advocates, etc. I think so. Node, React, jQuery. What else is there to say? jQuery is one of those cockroach technologies that will never die. So
Yeah, as long as WordPress is around,
yes,
jQuery will be around, and so will
yes.
PHP. Um, still a very popular thing. Blazor's on here as well.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
It's part of ASP.NET, which is interesting.
Yeah,
So
it's hard.
that's
Well,
kind of
look,
and
it's hard to
ASP. Well,
classify these things, so you can't have a clean separation. So
mhm,
take the combination of the two, right? You're sitting at
right.
32% roughly, 33%. Not bad.
.NET, just way up here in frameworks.
I think it can be
Um,
argued that Stack Overflow does have quite a large .NET community because it's built on .NET itself. So Jeff Atwood
mhm,
and friends have been espousing .NET for a long time, so they obviously attract that type of audience. That's not to
right.
say that the survey is invalid or biased. I'm just saying. Electron's still hanging around. There you go. Cordova. What the hell? Why is that still there? Oh, we're done with
Xamarin.
PhoneGap. Xamarin. Yeah.
Xamarin will soon be taken over by Maui. We'll have to see how that
Yep.
transitions
That'll be
next year.
interesting. Yep. NPM, Docker.
Other
Uh, Doc,
tools.
Docker
Oh,
Docker was the big surprise. I mean, it increased 14% year over year. So a lot of people are using it. I would imagine a lot of that is driven by Kubernetes deployments and by GitHub Actions. So a lot of people will spin up environments using Docker and utilize containers from Hub, etc. Unity 3D. There you go.
it's a
Terraform is
big one.
interesting. Terraform is like us is basically a sysops tool for configuring environments, and that's on the list. It's right up there with with Ansible, I guess. Yeah, Puppet, Chef. There you go.
VS Code just
I know this is
dominating
like
the list
like
here.
Demper. This is like the monolith, and Visual Studio is right behind it. Like, if you're not using VS Code, I really wonder like what other life choices have you made? Sorry, I don't mean to sound
Right.
harsh, but VS Code is really good. I really like it, as folks who have followed this podcast know. So yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at compare some of the things on this list, this is pretty interesting because it's like 74% of people are using the VS Code 32.
Yes.
Well, this isn't percentage of because these percentages don't.
Of all
Uh,
respondents. Now, if you go up and you do the filter, or you pivot from all respondents to say pro devs, that number ends up staying the same. I guess learning to code might change. Yeah. So learning to code obviously goes up when you have a free tool. When you're just learning to
I
code,
guess
you're
you
going to
could
grab
pick
what's
more
there.
than one on this. Is why it's skewing the way it is because I'm obviously 81% and 34% is more than 100%. So this isn't a percentage of.
Yep. Sure.
So this must have been a multiple choice
Yep.
where you could choose more than one IDE. So
Yep.
people are using VS Code and Visual Studio, but still a great chunk here of people. And then you look at the tech again, and it's like, all right,
Yeah. I know. I
we've
know.
got .NET here, but then a lot of people are doing AWS, which is interesting because they're using Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code to do AWS. There's some deep dives that are going to have to be done to
I
make
know.
sense of some of this
I
stuff.
know. My favorite
Uh,
is well, this one's synchronous tools, Zoom, Slack, and Teams. So
mhm.
no surprises there.
They're
Who's
all pretty
using?
even.
I'm surprised Mattermost. Honestly, I'm surprised Mattermost isn't higher amongst developers. Mattermost is an awesome platform for developers. Like, it is probably one of the most customizable chat platforms I've seen. It's phenomenal. I was curious when I went through the most loved and dreaded tech. That's always the section that makes me laugh a little bit. So this is
Mhm.
like, which languages do you want to use the most? Rust for its security capabilities. It's got a pretty large community of crates available. Those are
Mhm.
like modules, I guess. And so a lot of people want to use that, and I think it's because of its speed and security out of the box, type
Yeah.
safety, super type safe, etc., etc. I was honestly surprised Go didn't rank higher. I would have thought Go would have been higher, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so this is really interesting too, because if you compare it again with the number of users,
Mm.
so
Oh, it's
you've
tiny.
got
Yeah, yeah,
a smaller user base with Rust, but a very enthusiastic one.
yeah. Tiny
Matter of
compared
fact, what's
to,
nice is if
yeah,
you hover over it, tells you how many people. So 5,700, so about 6,000 total,
yes, out of
but
71,000
majority of
responses
those,
total. Yeah.
yeah.
What's the
But then you go
want?
down to TypeScript, and you've
Oh, I
got
know. Yeah.
18,000,
Yes.
and still fairly positive here.
Yes.
Get down to C
Surprised people
sharp,
dread.
it's still more positive than not.
Yeah.
Um,
What is the want category? If you adjust the category up, oh, VBA, nice. Um,
womp womp.
cool, Paul. What happens with want? So Rust. Okay, so a lot of
Mhm.
folks want to use Rust. A lot of folks even want to use Python, TypeScript, and Go. Yeah, that makes sense. Kotlin's up there. That's good.
Mhm.
People want to use C++. All right, assembly. Jeez, what do they want? Just the pain or something? I don't get it. Why do they want assembly? Whatever.
Interesting
All right,
stuff.
whatever. Yeah. So, anyways, it's
Databases.
yeah, it's interesting data. It's interesting to go through.
Mhm.
It kind of helps you as a developer feel maybe better or worse than what your kind of internal inklings are. But this is a survey that's done every year, and generally there's no surprises. I mean, Docker was the big sort of winner, I guess, in this survey results. But we'll take time to parse this. It came out today,
Mhm.
so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
Hmm.
I'll have to dig through some of this data on my own and see if I can find any gems in there.
Yes.
There's so much of it. So
Yes.
much of it. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Come on, Firefox. What are your shortcut
Here we go.
keys?
Here we go.
Nope, that's not
Um.
it either.
No.
I'll just
Dev
go the old
tools.
fashioned way.
Sure.
So this is a good segue actually.
Okay.
So I didn't even plan this, but this works good. So CPython
Yes.
is developing a WebAssembly framework. And in a lot of ways, it looks like it's Blazor, but with Python as the language. I thought this was pretty interesting.
Right.
So I did not know what C Python was at first,
Oh. Okay.
but after reading the article, this is a C inspired version of Python. Um,
Well, it's a implementation of Python, but it's written in C and Python, and I think it's probably the most
okay,
popular
yeah,
implementation that's
written
out
in
there.
C. Gotcha. Yeah, it does say
Yeah,
written in C.
yeah. So it
Um,
defines. I think it defines both an interpreter and a compiler. So Python is typically interpreted, but they provide a compiler as well, and
but
that obviously generates the
I guess
bytecode. And yeah,
the reason they chose this is because C can compile easily to
yes,
WebAssembly. So it's running
yes, yes,
Python code in the browser. This is exactly what Blazor does. So it runs C# code in the browser
right.
through a runtime that was compiled from C. And then there is also, very interesting enough, a server side model that uses WebSockets, which
Hmm.
Blazor does identically. So this feels very Blazor inspired. They even talk about it a little bit here in the article. Um,
This
so
sounds a lot like nuts. This sounds a lot like nuts and gum to me. So, you know, it's kind of one of those weird experiences you don't want, so like eating nuts and gum at the same time. So,
yeah,
anyway,
it's, if
whatever.
you're
I
a
mean, I'm not a
Python
Python
dev,
guy, so yeah,
maybe you wanna build like React JS style apps, and you don't want to learn JavaScript and
right.
have to be weighed down with all the npm and Webpack mumbo jumbo. And you can run it server side with WebSockets. It gives you like that isomorphic rendering capability. So I think it's pretty interesting. We'll have to see how it goes. I don't know who's behind it and see. Okay, so there's an individual behind it. Blazor took a team at Microsoft to build, so it'll be interesting to see what open source community can do with this. And I don't know, I hope it's successful. I think
Yeah,
Python's a cool language. Um, I know students are pretty adapt to it. Like I've talked to young people and they've tried it out. It's one of the things that I think
talk to the kids.
is in the code, like hour of code style sessions that they do in high schools and stuff is Python.
Right.
So when I've talked to the youngin, they've had some Python experience generally. So
It's
it'd
the
be
how's it going, fellow kids?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I used to go to the local high school before the pandemic and pretty regularly talk to kids and see what
About
they're using.
programming and stuff. Yeah.
Yep, and Python came up quite often. So
Okay. Neat.
Angular 14. This is maybe a week or two old. So
Okay.
sorry if I'm a little behind on the announcement here, but I'm not a typical Angular dev. But I do know some. A good friend on my team, Alyssa, told me about this, and
Hmm.
she was super excited. She's super
Nice.
excited about everything. So,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, you got to take that with a grain of salt. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
sure.
If you know Alyssa, like her personality is
She's
just
bubbly.
absolutely
Yes.
contagious.
Everything's amazing. Everything's
Everything is
awesome.
amazing.
Everything's amazing.
It's like the
Like
Lego song.
you're at 11. We need you at a 4. Come on. Simmer
Yeah,
it.
it's like the intro to the Lego movie, but it never stops.
Yes.
Uh,
Everything is
yeah,
awesome.
so she's like, Angular 14's out, woo! And I checked it out. There's some pretty cool stuff in here. They simplified the standalone components. I think they dropped this a few versions back, but I guess they stabilized it a little bit more. So essentially, you can write your components. They're not restricted to just running inside of Angular. They have exposed properties and endpoints to just run inside of vanilla JavaScript. So I guess they encapsulate the Angular, you know, framework, call it runtime for lack of a better
Yep.
term, and
Yep.
wrap it around the component itself and let you use the components. You could come up with some, chart visualization or something, and it works in Angular. It also works in any other framework, just because it's kind of this component model they developed.
Okay.
Another thing that I found interesting because coming from a very Blazor heavy background lately, this is something that's taken for granted. So typed forms.
Okay.
So with the power of TypeScript, you have typed data sets and things. You can now apply this to forms in a typed manner. So you get type checking on on values and things. So if you have, say, a model that has a integer for an age or something like that, the not only the IDE but the TypeScript compiler is not going to let you grab a string and set the value to a string, or get a expect the string to come back from it, that sort of thing.
Right.
Um, Again, like, definitely something I take for granted with Blazor. It's like that just comes out of the box because it's C sharp. And then I saw this announcement. It's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense for something very JavaScripty to need
Sure.
that type of thing. So
Yep.
yeah, here's that actual not age, it says lives. So you got 9 lives, and then down here you try to get a substring on that, and it's like, okay, that's a compiler error because there's no substring of an integer or a number. Sorry, it's not an integer in JavaScript. It'd be a number. Number. Uh,
Isn't this all? This is all TypeScript, though, isn't it? Providing
it is.
that plumbing.
It
But
is.
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, like I said, I was a little surprised to see it. It's just now getting in there, but is what it is. Probably, legacy, like backwards compatibility,
Okay.
yada yada yada. Just grabbing things out of thin air and guessing, but just making, it's
Story of my
pretty good.
life.
It's a pretty
Perfect.
educated guess.
You're
Got to
feeling
keep
what I'm feeling, right? Yep. All right.
backwards
Good.
compatibility with stuff. You
Yep.
probably can't just strongly type the heck out of everything when it's in a
Sure. Why not?
JavaScript
Yep.
world. When not, I don't think JavaScript or TypeScript is a 100% requirement. I think it's hard to kind of go a straight JavaScript route. Maybe I'm wrong. I know with React, it's
I
mix and
suspect you
match.
could, because TypeScript is just JavaScript. So
Yeah.
anything you can do, I can do better.
Just use any all the time and call it a day.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
don't
it
do that.
compiles down. Sorry, I should correct. It compiles down to JavaScript is what I should be saying.
Yeah, a lot of the other stuff is enhancements with like feedback of errors and stuff like
Yep.
that, which is
Yep.
always
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Like better intelligence in templating that works with the compiler with this as well. So it'll give you more realistic errors if there's something in your template that doesn't belong, that type of thing. So
Wicked.
yeah, good luck with the Angular 14 stuff, folks. Um, Speaking of new bits and new frameworks and whatnot, Sam Basu, he had an excellent article here that he published on our Telerik blogs.
Mm.
So Sam, longtime friend of ours, he's been focused on Maui, the successor to Xamarin,
Yep.
and Maui, the API access, platform API access, is first and foremost like the thing that's going to make this successful. So what you want to do is kind of have a common API set that you can write code against that's going to compile out to native API calls on a platform on a specific device. So
Easier said than done.
it's much easier said than done. Yeah, that is like the napkin summary of what we need to
Yes.
do versus
Yes.
actually getting it done. So he does a really cool thing here and kind of uh, puts this in a perspective of like a historical trip of
Oh, I see. So you're
Maui, and
saying like a historical retrospective of platform APIs.
he's like, okay,
Okay.
in the early days was the Wild West, and we had these things weren't really baked out well. We had Xamarin and Xamarin Forms, and then as history goes along, these things got a little better. There's Xamarin Essentials, and it kind of unified some things. Uh, the
The
Alaskan
Alaskan
merger.
merger.
He's so clever with this stuff. It's really great. Makes a fun read. So he talks about how it got better, and Maui came along, and that
Yeah.
kind of
The Hawaiian
turned things on
archipelago.
its head. Sam's awesome. Yeah, so now we have Microsoft Maui Essentials, and
Yes.
it's just a graduation of the aforementioned things in the article. But
Right.
it kind of shows what some of the specifics around it are. You've got things with like the battery on the device, and power saving, and screenshots and media pickers and
Yeah.
compasses and
Yeah.
geolocation, and it's like very robust these days. It covers a lot of bases. And he
Yes.
shows like some of the uh, the black box here and how it's implemented in global using statements and whatnot. So it's a really great read. If you get a chance, drop by blogs.telerik.com, check it out. It's at the top of the page there.
Hmm.
And then, John, we have
Don't
we
do
have
it.
this thing. We haven't done it in a while. I've spared your feelings a bit. We haven't had this in a bit. So it's time for Can it play Doom, John?
Yes.
This
I'm
is
sure it can. The answer is yes now to that question each and every time.
can you play Doom on a Lego brick, John?
Sure, why not?
So this is the smallest implementation
What?
of Doom next to the pregnancy test I think we've seen. Um,
I told my sister
so
about that. She didn't believe me. I told her, they're running Doom on pregnancy tests, and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yep."
yes. So this kind of actually reviewed some of the other things. Like it was on a rotary phone, on a calculator,
Yeah.
on Twitter. Now you can play it on a
Uh,
Lego brick.
he's cheating. He's cheating. He put it on an off-screen PC. That's cheating. I thought the whole thing was
Where do you
running in the
see?
brick. You
Where do
just
you
scroll
see
up. He
the
says he's got it right in that middle paragraph there. It says the teeniest tiny
teeniest monitor
monitor,
possible?
but he's got it on an off-screen PC.
Okay, the off-screen PC is pretty tiny as well. It's not like
Oh,
a
okay, sorry.
full PC. It is on the blue piece holds a small ass STM blah 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 circuit board with an ARM Core Mo
Okay.
processor,
So it's
16.
reasonable. It's
It's
reasonable.
yeah, it's in the bricks, I believe, not in that brick, but it's in the
Right.
Lego construction.
I'm just surprised he has enough pixels. Like,
So this is on a
what's the
0.42-inch,
72 by
72 by
40? Oh
40
my god.
resolution OLED display. Barely big enough to see what's happening,
Yes.
but still very cool anyhow. I mean, this is pretty awesome.
You can see
Yeah,
the walls. You can kind of
you could
make it out.
yeah, I think I saw an
Interesting.
explosion there. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah,
neat
yeah.
looking.
It is. It's clever.
It is very clever. It's a nice little Easter egg too if you're building like a set for something and you want to have that in it. Um, So yeah, the microcontroller in the brick has a 16K flash.
Sure.
So it
You
wasn't
just
gonna
went to
run
get to a Doom
properly.
sprite.
Yeah, so they do stream video to it, but
Well,
it
he was saying this engineer, I think his name's Keith Brown, said that he was giving options. He's like, well, I could raycast the game or I could project it through a thing. I think he was saying a third one, but anyways, yeah, he was looking
Mhm.
at options basically. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
stick a wire in and stream video to it, or put in a more powerful processor. You know, so he's like, of course I took option three. You know, the roads split into
Uh,
two paths, and I took the least traveled one, which is
exactly.
yes,
So very, very cool. I thought this was just creative stuff. So he's got it up
yes.
on his Twitter
Shout out to
account. That's
James.
James Brown here from New Zealand.
That's right.
Uh looks like this is something he does quite
Oh
often
wow. Okay.
with these little 72 by 40 uh pixel
Well, that's another person doing
display
that. I guess. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of this stuff going on. So,
Pi Zero. Oh, wow.
yep. All
That's
right.
that's crazy, man.
Sure.
I wonder if that's what the intended use is. They're like keyboard displays, like for
Well,
your
there you may remember the keyboard. Well, I think it's still being sold. It's called DOS keyboard. And I seem to remember that DOS keyboard had a what did they have? They had a version that had LED keys. I think I'm not sure. It's the ultimate mechanical keyboard, but I'm trying to remember if they had an LED based one. I don't know if they did.
I mean, we've got these with the what's it called? The ones that they sell for streaming and whatnot.
Oh right, yeah.
Uh
Every
those
kid's
are
got them now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder if that's what the display originally came from. like with something that you'd buy
or a
to
Stream
build
Deck
out.
from Elgato, for
Yeah,
example.
that's what I
You know,
meant.
there's
Stream Deck.
yes.
Yeah.
Mm,
So it seems
very
like
good.
that would be the normal use for such a display. So he thought, let's put Doom on it and put it in the Lego set, which is totally cool.
Yep. Yep. Awesome.
Love it. I love it. Right. More stories for you, John. Stuff that you
Great.
love. So Microsoft, what used to be Facebook, and others. I like how they say others. Some other big players in here. Um, Formed a standards group, an open standards group on the
For
Metaverse.
what?
I don't know. That's what I was trying to figure out. So it's like we formed a consortium on vaporware.
It looks like they're sharing design or sharing formats on geospatial 3D tech, virtual reality. Okay, so the building blocks
Yeah.
of what a metaverse is, basically.
So
Okay.
this is probably a good um, comparison here. The
W3,
W3C.
W3C rather.
So
Yep.
you know this way you've got like interoperability between platforms and data sharing and stuff. So
Sure.
if Minecraft, for example, has something of value in it that you want to share data with face or no, sorry, not Facebook anymore,
Meta.
Meta, whatever their world thing is, I can't, Horizon. Maybe you want to bring like one of your little characters in as a sit around for your desk in Horizon, which has like homes and offices or whatever. You could probably do something like that
Sure.
if they're able to share data and models and whatnot. So
Yeah, like
um,
if you understand how the W3C works, where they provide specifications for universal formats and protocols. Excuse me. As a multi sneeze. Excuse me. The same analogy can be made here. So, what is the standard definition or specification for a virtual environment? What is the same for a model? What's the definition of a vertex and an edge and those things? Like those are simple examples, but yeah,
yeah,
those
that's
are I
probably
guess.
the thing first and foremost here is like, how are people going to pay for things in the metaverse, and how can we all benefit from this?
God, looks
Yeah.
like you're attempting to open a door. That will be, you know, 99 cents. So
I mean, I think if you make this interoperable standard of things too, and you say like this item has a unique, you know,
metadata properties,
yeah,
etc.
it,
Yeah.
it has, it's an NFT of sorts, then you don't have like this weird competition where there's like, well, I have the thing in this metaverse, but then I have to buy it again in that metaverse, and then also
Right.
have to buy the same hat for my character in that one. That
Mm.
might be a thing that they might be able to solve too. Is so if you buy the widget, you have the widget everywhere, and it's more valuable if it if you bought like a if you had 5 companies printing baseball cards for us kids from the 80s and 90s,
Right.
and they all had the Jose Canseco rookie card, then it kind of be hard to decide which one's the better one. And then
Right.
fast forward 30 years later, when that player does something terrible and it's in the news, everybody loses complete value of that rookie card at the same time. So
Good. I don't care.
that was a plot twist, wasn't it?
Yes.
Um, Competitive coders are the future of esports. I future of might be a little strong of a word. Yeah, I don't know if this is the quote future of esports, but it
No
could
one would
be
watch it. If you've got
a
algorithms fighting each other, no one would watch.
could
The
be
whole
a
reason why
component of the future of
Sure. The
esports.
reason why esports is popular is because of the human element, not
Mhm.
because of the programming involved. No one wants to watch algorithms battle each other.
Yeah, so the headline is a bit clickbaity, I guess, even though that's not like ooh clickbaity headline, but like it's misleading, I suppose. So the real meat of the article here is that schools are trying to ride the coattails of esports. And it's a good
Yes.
thing. I'm not saying that in a cynical way. I think it's a good thing. They actually recognize the value of esports, as it says here in the
Yes.
article. It's like esports have been around for nearly 2 decades. If you look at especially at other countries like South Korea, uh, huge esports community there.
Yes.
It's not as prominent here in the states as nearly prominent as it is there, but I think the younger generation here is catching on with the esports stuff, especially with Twitch. Twitch is
Yes, of
really
course. Of
hammering that
course.
home.
Yes.
So the teachers and younger generations of teachers are looking at that, going, yeah, what can we do with this Twitch and esports and competitive stuff in video games and make that a teaching strategy. And there's this Code Combat AI League
Right.
that solving the problems and using code is trying to be kind of like gamified, so they can build this esports style
Yeah,
of
this will encourage people to program.
Mhm.
This will be interesting, but no one will watch it. The whole
No,
reason why
not on a massive scale, but
no,
I could
but
see
the
like the D&D club or the AV club or
sure.
the
They're they're conflating the idea that if they take these things like esports and gaming and Twitch and all that sort of stuff and apply AI algorithms, etc., to it, that everyone will follow suit. And the answer is
yeah.
absolutely not. The only reason why you watch esports and anything like that is the human element involved. No
Mhm.
one will want to watch computers battle each other in a
Yeah.
not nothing that involves humans will is interesting to humans.
So
And it
not on
yeah,
a scale of like it's going to be on television or even on Twitch maybe, but you could say like a very small subset of people that might go to like a high school uh like soccer game or something,
yes.
that type of thing could be a reasonable audience, like that size of an audience. A couple dozen kids and a couple parents might want to come see their kids do this thing that they don't quite understand, but their kids are excited about. Um,
There's no emotion. There's no emotions. No one will this is not engaging to watch. There's zero emotion in this.
as it
I have no
says, the
so
gameplay creates instant engagement.
wrong, wrong.
Oh,
That is
John.
because there's a human element involved.
Well,
So
this
look,
still
let me
is.
be clear. Let
I
me
don't know
be
if
clear.
I think you're
I want to
taking
put
the
this out there.
AI bit. I think AI is being thrown in here as a
It's nothing to do with
marketing.
the AI. They could
I
call
think
it
it's a
machine learning. I
marketing
wouldn't
thing.
care. I wouldn't
I
care.
don't even think it's that. I think it's a
The
marketing
whole
thing.
reason why, and I have some personal experience in this, not personal, but like with my kids. I've seen my kids, and the reason why they like esports and why they consider it is because of the human element, not
Mhm.
because of anything to do with software or they could be playing Pac-Man. It wouldn't matter. The human element, the emotion of watching people struggle, triumph, heroes, villains, that all that emotional part of storytelling is what draws people into watching esports. If
Mhm.
you're doing this via algorithms that these emotionalist, feelingless computers are going to run on your behalf and almost instantly, by the way, and you're not going to see them struggle, like you're not going to see any emotion on the computer's face when it's trying to calculate something. It's just going to be like 1 + 1 2 + a blah 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 compute, you know, for each blah blah blah, right? No one will watch this, no one.
Yeah.
But no, to their credit, it is a good idea to encourage people to program and to solve challenges with games. But no one, I think they're conflating the idea that everyone will watch it because it's popular in esports, and I think
Yeah, I
that's
don't
wrong.
think there's gonna be that much of a live viewing audience type of thing, but I can see like teams and like we do this with robotics here.
Yes, coding
So
challenges.
yeah.
These are yeah, been around for a long time.
So the same idea here. You're not watching. This isn't like battle bots, by the way. It's not like, oh, these two robots
It's like
going.
virtual
Yeah.
battle bots, but without a
It's
human
not
involved.
even.
Yeah,
So they're not like battling, right? What they do is they have like a course with like say like red cones on it, and they have to
right.
go pick up the cones in a certain order the fastest possible, that type of thing. So it's this is more on that um, in that ballpark, I think.
All right.
Is these are going to be, you have to code the character to do X, Y, and Z. Who can come up with the fastest, most reasonable way to do it, and the fewest lines of code type of thing. That's kind of what they do with robotics. It's like we have to get the four cones picked up in the quickest way possible. With this programmable arm. So it's very similar to the robotics thing, except it puts it on a CRT, and so boy, that is an outdated term. Puts it on a computer monitor rather than a IoT device that's roaming the.
Programs on a punch card.
Yeah, put it on the picture tube.
Nice.
Still, bringing competition into computer science, I think, is good.
By the way, that headline graphic was an endless loop. Anyways,
Oh,
people can
wasn't
go
it?
back and yeah, they had a wild true statement. I don't think they had a go-to. All right. Anyways,
What are we doing with passwords in Visual Studio, John?
I don't know. I ask myself that every day. One Password is a password manager. It's like LastPass. Very popular. I use it. It's great. They have recently announced a Visual Studio extension. So I thought this was kind of cool because sometimes what happens is you'll work on code and you'll persist secrets in your code. This doesn't happen often. It happens in testing a lot, but you'll persist things like API keys and URLs, etc. So what this extension for VS Code does is it takes over a special protocol handler, which is OP. And what that does is when it sees that URI scheme, it will actually go off to your connected one password and persist those values in there. So it allows you to not only create credentials, but access them if you have this is local, obviously. But the thing that this does is it helps prevent you from leaking those passwords inadvertently to source control that may be public, for example. So you can see the example here. There's a Stripe API key here. They're like, okay, I want to create this. I want to call it this. I want to put it in this field and then under this vault. Here's another example where they have a server URL and a token, and they basically persist those as values in one password in a secure location. So save in one password. What do you want to call this item in general? What do you want to call this string? What do you want to call this string? And then it will rewrite those into one password. And then when it goes to run that code, it will replace those values so that you don't leak inadvertently secrets. So I thought that was a good idea.
It is a really good idea, and again, this is something that we take for granted in the .NET world. So this is built
Well,
into .NET.
yes. I mean, the reality is there are vaults and things like that from companies like HashiCorp, for example, that do this sort of thing, but it's a cloud-based service, whereas this is more local. So, and one password is seen as a pretty trusted resource for your
Yeah,
secrets. So, yeah.
yeah. So the way this works on .NET is your app gets a GUID, um, and then through Visual Studio you have access to it through the UI. But you can do it through the command line as well. So your app gets a GUID. That GUID corresponds to a JSON file that has the keys for the app when it's running locally, and then when you publish it to the server, that same process gets those keys from a secure location on the server. So it is kind of like built into .NET to do this, called user secrets.
Yep.
So it just depends on what mode you're in. If you're
Yep.
in debug, deploy,
Yep.
etc., it gets it from different places.
Yes.
Um, that way, you can have your developers that are working locally on their device connect to a
Yes.
different set of endpoints with a different set of credentials, and then when they publish it, you don't accidentally connect to like the dev database in public and all that stuff. So
Yes.
there's a lot of different reasons to do this. This another way to. I like that it saves it in your one password account. That's pretty
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm. Now that
Um,
being said, I wrote, I helped co-author the Visual Studio extension for Octopus Deploy. And in our investigation work for building it, one of the things we needed was a way of persisting credentials in a secure manner because we were using API keys, for example. and we wanted to persist that across sessions. And it turns out that Visual Studio, I think back in version 1.44 or something like that, which was a few months ago, added a new API for secure storage. So I wouldn't be surprised if under the covers they're using that as part of this solution. But Visual Studio Code, if you're a Visual Studio Code extension writer, author, you're writing an extension for Visual Studio, there is actually a secure storage available in Visual Studio Code itself. And so if you're wanting to write an extension that persists values across sessions and is synced to Visual Studio Code in the cloud, for example, in a secure manner, I think this is true. You can use that secure storage for that purpose, meaning it doesn't share it, but rather it's stored in that secure location if you're using VS Code in the cloud. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just happen to have Visual Studio open
There you go.
on my desktop
Yes.
with a .NET app. So I'm trying to remember where it is in here.
Is it
You
in the
could
source
do,
file
yeah,
where you can right click on something and say, oh, user secrets?
yeah.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
on my server project, I can do
Yes.
use manage user secrets. I'm not going to click it because it will actually create a file on my behalf
Okay.
on a secure location to my disk. So only if I'm logged in as me can Visual Studio
Yes.
access those secrets.
Yes.
So
Yep.
if I
Makes sense.
did that, it would create that link between this server application and that JSON file on my section of the disk here on my machine. And then if I published this app to like Azure or something, I'd have to have a uh, corresponding set of keys in my environment variables or something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
So that's how it works in .NET. So it's very similar to the article that's
Yeah. I mean,
outlined
this
here.
facility, this facility is just a lookup facility. It's been around for
Mhm.
forever. We've done sort of lookups like this, but it's using a secure location and backed up by a company that's pretty reputable, meaning 1Password.
Yeah, I like it. Cool. Um, GitHub Copilot is generally available to all developers. It went GA. Uh,
Yeah. So they're
$10 a
charging $10
month.
a month for it. That's the big FYI. So Copilot's been used for a bit. People have been using it to help author software. And for those who don't know, GitHub Copilot is basically um, it's basically an extension that offers coding suggestions. So as you're coding, it will look for common patterns seen across all of GitHub and offer up patterns as you're typing, basically. So as you're typing, it will say, "Oh, it looks like you're doing this." It's kind of like that's not kind of like, but it's not anything like. But if it's synonymous with Clippy firing up and saying, "Looks like you're doing this. You want to do this."
No, it's
You know,
very clippy
so
like. I
no,
think
come
that's a
on, come
pretty
on.
good
So
analogy there.
yeah, well, I don't like it because people would be like, it's totally not like Clippy, but it
It's
kind of
not,
is.
but it is at the same time.
Yes. So it
Um,
will offer up suggestions. And so now it's generally available and it costs money because before it didn't cost any money. So,
I don't like to just dump on things, but I'm not typically a fan of GitHub Copilot. I've turned it off on Visual Studio.
okay.
Just it always suggested the wrong thing, and I know it'll get better because it's machine learning based. But in its current form, it was just in my way a lot. It's like, yeah, IntelliSense does a decent job at figuring out what I need
Right.
without suggesting too much. And the rate that Visual Studio or C Sharp moves with the language, I found to be a bit of a problem as well. So it's only as up to date as the data it learned from. And so,
Yes.
like, if something newer comes out, it still suggests the old way of doing things until that gets kind of learned.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee that what it suggests is going to be even that great, to be honest. I mean, there's some pretty funny blog posts posted on Twitter that people have said like, really, Copilot, this is what you're
Mhm.
doing, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's what brings me back to this part. Like, I'm all
Sure.
for paying for things that make me more productive.
Yes.
I've yet to see the value here yet.
Yeah, I think the whole reason for the cost is to supplement the whole reason for the price is to supplement the cost of them maintaining servers to provide a really fast experience because
I get
obviously
that.
Copilot's calling home constantly. So,
I th- I would have imagined just this catches me really by surprise. I would have imagined this being an API cost, not a individual developer license cost, where the folks that make the things
Sure.
that consume it,
A lot. Yes.
like
I think that was
these
that.
these
Yeah, I
guys
would have. Yeah,
would be the ones paying the
I would have.
price.
I agree. I would have imagined that they considered this internally. That they would have
Mhm.
thought, okay, well, if we price it this way. But I think just for simplicity, because no one can guarantee, like, oh, I'm running out of API calls. I better turn it off. I think it's kind of a hard user experience story to get right. So I think just say, all right, screw it, $10 a month, hundred
It
dollars
could
a
have been
year.
an anti-competitive thing too that they did this, because if they would have baked it, if they would have made it the way I said, where it's an API service that NeoVim, JetBrains, Visual Studio, and VS Code had to pay for the API calls, then Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code or Microsoft, they
Right.
essentially wouldn't be paying anything,
Yeah.
and then all of the costs would be kicked off to these guys, which could be a basis for a lawsuit, actually. So,
Yeah, I suppose. I think it might not.
yeah, that's more than a suppose. I think that's a pretty good definite.
Okay.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
essentially locking down the ecosystem
Yeah.
completely, and
I,
then
I think I think reasonable people will ask why does it cost money when before it didn't, and I
Mhm,
think I think it's partly because the suggestions it's now offering are reasonable enough to provide value, and also providing this experience requires a lot of iron. You've got to pay for a lot of CPUs,
mhm,
and so it's more than just network. It's a lot of machine learning, which requires CPUs, etc. So
mhm.
I would imagine they're paying a high cost for that internally, so that they have to justify it or offset that cost by providing people,
Yeah.
by charging people. So I think $10 is not a great deal of money to a developer, and it's a co-pilot in a
No,
sense,
I don't think
right?
it's too much to ask or anything like that.
No,
It's just I haven't seen the value yet. Like,
yeah,
their
fair enough.
little marketing thing here says that quickly became it was an indispensable part of their daily workflows, and I'm over there going, "Where's the setting to turn this off? It's annoying." Um,
Sure.
that's where my
So it's like
me
Clippy.
questioning and they want somebody to pay for this thing.
Sure.
No, but if you do find value in it, it's definitely worth $10. That's for sure. It's like,
Yeah.
spend more than that on like what, 2 coffees that some people probably go through that in
Well,
a
one
day,
coffee
if not
now.
a week. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Uh a gallon of gas. Um
Yes.
so
Hey,
uh
Calvin.
the $10 is justifiable if it's doing
Yeah.
you good.
That's
Um
funny. We should measure our software in prices per gallon now.
yeah.
So this Copilot will run you 1 gallon of gas. That's hilarious.
That's what it all boils down to, my friend.
That's our new measuring stick. Forget the gold
But,
standard. We're going to the gas standard.
I mean, CPU cycles equals energy burned somewhere
That's
with
right.
some fuel. So, in a
I like it.
roundabout way, there's a dinosaur powering
Yes.
the server somewhere.
Yes.
Um, yeah, that's the sad state
Awesome.
of things. Like, in the future,
Yes. In the
in the
future,
future, our dinosaur
plants will
powered
drive. Well,
servers.
yes. Yes. Plants will provide you textual input on a cursor that is virtual, sitting on your screen that is projecting photons into your eyes.
Yeah,
So
our our strives in energy production have not gone very far over the last
no,
100 years. Like
no. We need
we
a we
learned
need
to
a Tesla. We need a
burn the
Tesla
dinosaurs.
revolution for a lot of things. Yes.
Yeah. Don't get me started on Tesla today. Uh, but anyway, I know where
All
the
right.
sentiment is. I agree with the
Yes.
sentiment, maybe not the company. Um, yeah, so it's GA, it's money now. If you like it, put a ring on it. I'm all for paying for the things that you use. Like I had a Twitter rant the other day. I will leave them completely unnamed because burning bridges is bad. But I'm talking to this entity and they like straight up refuse to like pay for any type of software tooling for their developers. Not our company, by the way. Just that's the only thing I need to say. It's not our company. I'm talking to
Yeah,
these
yeah.
folks. And they're like, that would be nice, but we don't buy like literally anything because the bottom line. I'm like, so yeah, yeah. If it helps you be productive, pay money for it for the love of God. Like, why pigeonhole your developers into using like, the free version of whatever because you don't want to pay the $10 for Copilot or whatever the widget is that's making you be more productive. You're saving $10 today, but in the long run, it's costing you this developer who makes, X amount of dollars per hour plus benefits in healthcare and whatever else they get. Yeah, you're looking for savings on the wrong end of the expense report. It's uh it's a sad thing. So if it makes you productive in any way, shape, or form, pay the $10. Check out GitHub Copilot, and I'll end my rant there, John.
Preach it, brother.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. It's hard talking to people about how to justify the costs for things. People are bad at this, really bad at this, John.
Oh
I
well.
mean, I think that is a skill that needs to be taught in school and in just non-business um, courses in higher learning. This needs to be taught. I've had too many oddball conversations where it's like somebody replied great on Twitter. They're like, "Yeah, we can't expense this $200 widget, but we can all get in a meeting together for 2 hours to bike shed something at the cost of
Yes.
$60 per hour per head. Invite everybody all you want. Have as many meetings as you care to have, but expensing an item that's something we'll have to have a meeting to talk about."
Yes.
All right, folks. That's kind of a somber end of the show, but that's me. So whatever. Have a good week. We'll be back tomorrow. I've got Jeremy St. Clair, a good friend of mine. He's a dev MC from Microsoft. He's an interesting dude to talk to. So he goes to Build and a lot of the VS Live type conferences and chats with folks, and we'll have a good talk with him. He's a Microsoft MVP and all of that good stuff. So you all have a good week, and we'll see you soon.
All right.